What is up, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sibling Rivalry, the comic book club podcast hosted by yours truly, it's Benpai, and my wonderful sister, Anna. Again,
Win! It's me!
it's you! Um, so, reminder for everyone, this is the comic book club show, again hosted by me and my sister. The main goal is to, read some new comics, and once a month we read some manga, and try to see and critique it. Yep, and try to see who is better at picking books and such. And this week's choice was you, Anna. So tell us a bit about your choice.
So I chose the manga Blue Period Volume 1. Anybody who has followed us for a while knows that I'm a huge picker for the artwork. So this one is exactly why I chose it, was the emphasis on art, which I thought was also fun as a happy accident right after our Pearl.
Yeah.
Had a lot of similar scenes in terms of just scattered artwork everywhere. And emphasizing on the artist as the main character. So I honestly
not just an artist, but like an artist discovering themselves as an artist.
Yeah, a high school student learning, yeah. So it was cool. I don't remember, honestly. I chose this one so long ago in terms of, like, I have a manga short list.
Mm-hmm.
Chose this one so long ago that I don't remember how I found it in the first place, but I was excited to read it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like kind of looking at it and reading the synopsis of it. I wasn't super excited to sit down and read it,
Mhm.
but once I started reading it, I really enjoyed it. Actually,
Yeah.
it
was refreshing. It wasn't super deep or anything like that,
no,
or heavy material, but
it was very. I mean, I would categorize this as a slice of life manga.
Mhm.
And not the usual thing where it's like sci-fi or fantasy for me. But I still, even though it wasn't sci-fi or fantasy, I still enjoyed the story of it quite a bit. There were some things that I kind of expected to go one way, but it seemed to go the other. And do you know how many volumes this manga is?
I do not, actually, and I don't even know if this is still an ongoing story.
Because I don't.
Right.
This is one that if it's not ongoing, I would actually be kind of interested in continuing it.
I'm interested in the character and how his art develops. I loved the little take that you got in the parents.
Yeah, definitely like two very very different parents, but not in not in a bad way.
There are 11 volumes.
There are 4 on Comixology right now.
It says they released monthly since June 2017 and has been collected in 11 volume. There's a certain word for the type of volume. So, as of September 2021.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
So I guess there's 4 volumes that have been translated so far.
Right. That was my assumption too.
I still haven't I still haven't gotten to the point with manga where it's like if something's ongoing or has a lot of volumes, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna read all of this because I want to know all of it.
Witch hat, Ben. Witch hat.
Yeah, I mean that would be the closest one to that, but even that, like the style is not enough my thing. For as far as manga, like manga is not my thing. Enough to I
I'm
keeps.
definitely far choosier, but I do and I mean, even going into this when we started the series up again,
Mhm.
I read more manga as a kid than you did.
Yeah.
So,
I think that that's definitely the big difference. There are definitely characters and relationships with the characters that I do want to see kind of develop. Um,
especially in this one yeah, in this one, I'm super interested, especially in the last, like,
y-
2 pages.
yeah, him and the God.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, if if anyone does anything art related, you all know that one person. Like even if you're great, you know that one person that you've gone to school with, and you're like, man, their work is so much better than mine. That you kind of look at and you're like, why you compare yourself to. Um, I mean, I definitely had that person in my photography classes. And I could still tell you exactly who that person is. I won't out their name. Her name was. I won't out her whole name. Her name was Katie, though, and she had some of the most beautiful, specifically color photography. Where in high school I did, and I still prefer black and white. So her medium is technically completely different than mine, but it's something that like I look at and I'm like, man, I wish I had the mastery of colors that Katie has in color photography. Um,
Yeah,
but
and it also gave you that little bit of at the end where the god knew him by his name because obviously he held or he does the same thing comparing
exactly,
himself to other people, and it was such a humanizing and very real world moment where I was just like, "Oh, my heart."
yeah,
I would wanna read the next one just to see how their relationship develops.
right. And that's exactly where I was going with that. It's like, and then on the flip side, it's like you know that there are people that are like, oh, I wish my work were as good as Ben's work. I don't know that photography would have been that place for me, but I know in theater that happened occasionally. Um, but it's like it's one of those things. It's slice of life, and I could definitely see a real world in it.
Yeah,
And I especially liked in this one that moment of discovery where he was like, oh my god, I'm doing this and I actually like he'd been living his life where he's not really feeling anything, quote unquote.
he's very
Um,
detached from everything, and as a teenager, you can fit into that world of where you disassociate to fit in, or you could fall into the being like a troublemaker and standing out a lot to
right?
get noticed.
And you could see it in his facial expressions throughout the book as well, where it's just like he's sitting there and he's looking at these things and he's like, "Oh my god. This is this is amazing. This is beautiful. This is, all of these things that actually make me feel something." And again, like as someone who like likes art, I definitely I could resonate with the character. And then I could really resonate with the character in the is it irresponsible of me to try to follow this dream of making a career out of my art, um, or is that something that I should pursue? I think you and I are like the opposites in that, where you continued to pursue your art as a professional career and all of that um, after school. I did not. I went the I'm not even going to say the easy route, but the easy easier route, of just like, you know what, I'll do it as a hobby when I can and make money for doing other things. Um,
For sure.
so it's like
And
that part I also deeply resonated with.
I mean, anybody in either position can read this comic or who's contemplating it in the real world as a teenager can he's an overly
Analytical.
relatable character,
Yeah.
overall relatable character to anybody.
Mhm.
Um, I loved the moments where he was just floating in his memories of the place,
Yeah, essentially floating in his
his artwork.
when he was like legitimately losing himself in his art. Um, and I thought his relationship with his teacher was really great. I thought the character of the teacher was a really good guiding force throughout the book. And I did one of the things that I found really interesting about this manga, and you can you can definitely call me crazy for this, but I feel like if you are someone who is interested in starting to draw and make art, I would tell you to pick up this manga just because it's a pretty good instruction book with a nice story on the background.
That's so funny. That's like my only thing. I when she would go into like describing what a complementary color was and things like that, I started going, "Oh my god, I know," and just skimming through all of those
Yep.
moments. Like,
I did the same thing, but I like legitimately anytime like the lessons of art came in, I was like, okay, let's go. But at the same time,
interesting. And it
yeah.
didn't take away. It was just one of those things that we've now I'm like, okay, I have now gone through what a complementary color is for probably better part of my life. I'm done reading about it.
Well, and it's like even doing all of the photography stuff that I did in college, I was still required to take a drawing class. So it's like all of these things were things that I have learned. And
A
yeah,
bunch of times.
yeah. And if I really, really wanted to, I could probably try to learn it again, but don't. Drawing's not my shtick. So, yeah. I thought the assignment that they had over summer break was ridiculous.
Oh my god, that gave me so much anxiety. I was the person in college that was struggle busing finishing her assignments, and I
Oh,
mean, we had a month or 2 to create, like, 20 just renderings and watercolor paintings, and they had to create a scrapbook, photo a day, and all of these things. I was like, "No,
but you know what I do like
no."
about that being an overall art club? It's not just, it's not just drawing or painting or photography. It's that kind of assignment is a really good way to figure out what branch of art you are passionate about, especially because of how broad a category art is in general. Um,
I had
having
never heard of ne what was the one that the
oh
I
yeah.
wouldn't be able to say it properly, I know that, but the art counterpart to him in class specialized in a different type of art form that their grandmother favored. That's how they came to pick their specialty, like their art concentration. I had never heard of that art style before, or at
I
least that art term before, I
I
should
had
say.
I had not either. Nihonga? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. Um, and that is where I was like, oh, this is actually kind of interesting. It is very specific to Japanese culture. Uh, hmm. I'm just gonna go ahead and look it up now because why not?
Uh, but I overall I enjoyed all of the characters. It warmed my heart. The mother moment, as very quick as it was, where she was stressing about her child's future and she stumbles into his art room and sees it all, and she's like, "Oh, I understand. I will support him." And he just hasn't told her yet. That's another reason why I would want to continue reading for that moment.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, I with how
I did cry,
the
but I'm an
main
emotional.
character was talking about how his mom was. I did not expect that to be her reaction. But I think that's purposeful. The
Mhm.
story is told essentially by his perspective, um,
As
and
kids
you
always.
are yeah, and you are meant to kind of probably feel the same kind of things that he is feeling. But it's like, but that moment when his mom comes in and sees like, oh my gosh, he's been doing this for 3 months and he started here and this is where he's at. Well, this is what he wants to do. Then I'm gonna
And he
support
is an
him.
all-in character.
He is. I think that's another thing where
Like,
I think
dang.
all of us can relate in the Riddick household to that kind of thing where it's like once you figure out something, all of a sudden everything you do is about that thing.
Yeah.
Um, I think I think it got progressively more with each of us. Like I definitely had it, but not as big as like you do. And then
And then
Sarah is
Sarah.
just like Sarah is this character essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. Um, and then other characters that were also super enjoyable to follow through and to see how they continue supporting his friend is his, I'm gonna say delinquent because that's just what they kept calling each
The
other. Or
delinquent
like,
group.
yeah,
Yeah.
how supportive they were all about his art
Yeah, it was
and
that
how
was a
much
really
they
sweet moment as well.
and how they resonated with his first painting. Ah,
Mhm.
I loved it so much.
It's like you know
The
you're
relationships are key. What?
yeah, and you know you may try to hide things from your friends, but your friends they can you hang out with them a lot. They know when something's different, and I agree. I think that's another thing that I really like about the relationship aspect of this.
Mhm.
And I really liked this girl that's on the screen right now, the one that did the
The senior.
painting. Yeah, the
Yeah.
third year. Um, and I feel so bad for not remembering any names in this book. But I thought she was a really cool character. I liked
I loved
the
getting to see everyone's artwork,
yeah.
and her artwork was just stunning, which, of course, she's a senior member, a upperclassman, I should say upperclassman, not a senior,
Mhm.
member, an upperclassman, so you see the drastic leaps and bounds that this character had taken,
Right.
to get into her college.
Yeah. I mean, it was an enjoyable book to read for sure. And I think you and I had some similar favorite pages, um, and that was essentially when he
Yeah.
was losing himself in his art.
Yeah.
Like this scene where he's trying to do architecture, essentially like looking out his window and drawing, his view out the window, and how it kind of takes him out there and he's floating in the middle of it. And I thought those were really beautiful portrayals of how um, sitting down and working on artwork can be. And
Yeah.
same when he was in class and he was
Back
doing
on the street downtown.
no, no, no. So towards the end of the book, when he was at the school at the what was it,
Oh,
winter?
yeah, 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 when he was getting all into the oil painting, he was kind of like, "I have
Yeah,
no idea what I'm doing, so I might as well just have fun learning." I was
yeah,
like,
and
"Big mood."
and the moment where he's just like, I'm not even really controlling what I'm doing because I'm just letting my hands do the work. And I felt like that was just another one of those really good, like one of those really great moments of, yeah, this is what happens when you get super into your work. Like
Mhm.
you finish it and you kind of look at it and you're like, how did I get here? Oh, it's been 3 hours.
Oh man, that's the worst.
Yeah, yeah. Trust me. If you're into photography, let me tell you something right now. When you're editing a photo for that long, um, never edit a photo for longer than an hour at a time, because what ends up happening is you look at it and you see all of these problems in it, and you try to fix it all, and then by the end of the 3 hours, you're like, okay, it's perfect, and then you walk away from it and come back and you're like, oh my god, what is this over processed piece of shit? So every hour or so, take a step away, look at something else for like 15, 20 minutes, and then come back and look at it because it's important. I don't know if it's the same with other mediums of art, but with photography, just stop sometimes.
I think that's fair. I mean, I'm an over I very much do the detail work in my watercolors and things like that. So those 3 hours go into, the detail part. But uh seeing his exploration and just the medium in general and using the tools, even just his first initial with the pencil was
Uh
hilarious.
huh.
I'm also interested to see that other female character that I don't remember if you actually ever learned her name, who did the Stark backgrounds,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I don't know if anybody knows what I'm going to say when I say this, but I almost wonder if she's doing reductions, like oil reductions. So that means that you put on the oil paint
Uh huh.
and then you take a cloth or whatever and you rub
And
away.
uh huh.
And just like how she was completely covered in charcoal, you can also do charcoal reductions where you draw with the eraser.
Gotcha.
I had to do
Um,
this in art class. I was very bad at them, but
yeah, her oil painting was really cool. I like that it looks like they used actual artwork of art students,
yeah.
and they credited them um, in the book itself. Unless those are the character names, and I'm stupid. But I think no, I am pretty sure that because she did this,
Oh
that full
yeah.
black
Yeah. This
background.
was also the moment where he realized that he draws his own face.
Yep.
I was like, also big mood. I would get pulled aside and they're by professors and they're like, "So, you need to work on your faces because they all look the same, and by the same, I mean they all look like you." And I was just like, "Le gasp. No, they do not. They do not have chipmunk cheeks."
um, but yeah, it was as two former, I mean, me former-ish, you completely former art student. This was this one was a big one that like hit home.
Yeah. And it
Um,
definitely resonated in a way that you wanna continue reading because it's an interesting and, like, fun-loving story, not because you're like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
world
exactly.
shattered, changing."
Yeah, there's not like it's not like soap opera-y or anything
No,
like
this is an
that. And
easy, like, month-to-month release,
yeah,
but something to be like, "Oh, so refreshing," like, palate cleanser.
yeah, for sure.
This is
Um,
also something that I could totally see myself reading as a palate cleanser, as an in-between things.
yeah, I could.
With 11 volumes, I'm not gonna binge it.
No, why not?
I have a very short attention span with things like
Um, but these full like 2-page scenes um, were just absolutely phenomenal.
where you could also truly see his progress from that
Yeah.
first
Uh huh.
petal and then his new frigging flowers in the water vase. And I
Yep.
was like, "Oh my goodness."
Like you are making up for lost time of not doing this, buddy.
Yeah, and the fact that the second he decided, "No, I need to try this," he calculated the number of days he had
Yeah.
to become good enough to apply for art school.
Uh-huh.
The one art school.
Right. And understandable why he's applying for that one because of lack
Yeah.
of funds, which good to know that it's not just the US that where the art schools are ridiculously expensive to go to.
Okay, in my art school's defense, it was mostly ridiculously expensive because I was an out-of-state
Yeah,
student.
you were that yeah, absolutely. 100%. But most of the a majority of the really good art schools are private colleges.
Yes.
So, trying to get into it may be easy to get into one of the good ones, but then you're paying $5 million a year. Not actually, but an obscene amount of money
Which then
a
you also
year.
have to wonder, like, apprenticeships,
Yep.
you know?
And this book did kind of touch on a lot of that.
Mhm.
A lot of the different things that you might think, like, do you need to go to college for art to be a professional artist? No. Does going to college make you better at art? Maybe,
No.
but not necessarily. You go to these colleges and these schools to make connections.
Yeah.
And
Use
that
school as networking.
exactly. Um, because most of the time the teachers and professors are people who have done this professionally already, and have their own connections that they then share with their students. Um, and they mentioned a lot of those different things, like, oh well, I could just do this. It's like, yeah, you can, and you could probably be very successful doing that.
And I loved that about the art teacher. She never
Yeah, there was not a no, you shouldn't do it that way.
no, there is no right or wrong way, which
Yeah.
is the biggest thing for me about art and something that getting, like, really angry about in personal life. For people being or telling you that you can only be experimental with art if you're good at it, and that's not true because art is an experiment.
Yep. I mean,
And that's
almost
totally how
everything the main character in this is doing is
is an
experimental.
experiment. And I feel like the art teacher is the perfect art teacher character.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And I'm sure, like, I'm like the slice of life stuff. Like, if it resonates with a slice of my own life, kind of thing, does get me pretty emotional. But like, I'm sure you kind of can look at it and be like, oh my gosh, this art teacher is to the main character what, like, Mr. Rooter was for me,
yeah.
or what Hamsick was for me, or in any, like, not every art teacher is the same, or is going to push you the same way, but I feel like this art teacher was to this character like that driving force. Like, you may not be like perfect now, but you have it. You just need to
Yeah.
grasp it, you know?
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and
And I love it.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Um,
And I mean, I will also say, like, when I picked this one, I was excited to read it, but I can't say that I thought it was gonna be
I was
as
gonna
enjoyable for me as it was.
gotcha. I thought it just it hit home. Like, it just it hit different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is what I truly loved about this book. Um,
And I
and
know we didn't really talk about art panels so much independently. However, I feel like we never do for manga because there's a lot
right.
it either resonates with you or it doesn't, and this one was obviously one that heavily resonated with us, and of course, you go through it and you find actual art pieces that are probably gonna be some of your favorite pieces in the book just because they're extremely eye-catching, and it is such a lighthearted and fun-filled read that I would recommend it to somebody.
Wait, I didn't realize that this person was a male character.
They say it in the very beginning.
Did they? I missed that.
The upperclassman says while she's chasing after them,
Uh,
"I don't care what you're wearing, just slow down."
uh, I really like this character
Yeah,
too, in relationship to the protagonist,
me
Yatora.
too. They were fun, bickery characters, and then
Yeah,
they ended up growing together, and that'll be exciting to
it'll
see. I'm
definitely
also
be exciting to see kind of how their relationship throughout all of it goes.
and I'm very happy that, we're excited about the fact that they're not doing the same art style, so that way you can truly see them
You get to
growing together as kind of friends and colleagues more than competitors,
right.
comparing themselves to each other,
Hmm.
which that was like a breath of fresh air, that I was concerned about
Yeah, and I
when
mean,
they were doing.
yes, like art is a competitive. Um, I don't know competitive path to go down,
Yeah, but I
but
feel
at
like
the
it's not
same time, it's
competitive
not
amongst other artists.
right. It's
The
just
field itself is competitive because it's so small
right, and
and judged.
and the
Like,
thing
other
is,
people, not other artists to
right, and
artists.
every artist has their style. I'm really close friends with a lot of artists, and I could you could give me a slideshow of all of their work, including my Anna's, all mixed into well, including both of my sisters' art, really, all mixed
Yeah.
into one binder, and I could flip through it and tell you just by looking at it who each one is. Like, oh, this is Shelby. Oh, this is Sansa. This is Anna. This is Anna. This is Sarah. You know,
Yeah.
um, because and
And something I love about the art community is artists do not tend to put other artists down.
right,
It is such a, like, loving and welcoming environment, and that is perfectly portrayed in this, at least in this first volume.
right.
Who knows how it goes?
Yeah, it could I could see it, going the other way very quickly for sure.
Especially once it comes closer to, like, the competitive nature of getting into college.
Right.
So,
Especially right out the gate.
yeah.
Um,
Ooh,
yeah. 100%. Should we get into our ratings?
we can get into mm, we can get into our ratings. You can start with story. Sounded like a mouse. You can start with story,
Okay.
as always.
So
I'd say that is
the
the
story resonated with me very strongly, as I've mentioned. I don't think the story broke any ground, really. But it was enjoyable, and again, like as far as slice of life goes, this was one that I was able to really get into. I think it has a lot of room to grow and develop as a story. Do I think it's the greatest manga I've ever read? No. But I've also only read how many issues of how many mangas have we read? Like
5,
six.
6, 6.
I've also only read six manga. um, but I did greatly enjoy it, and I would be interested in continuing it. So I would probably give the story here an 8 out of 10. And this is me trying to be as objective as possible. Like, again, the story really, really resonated with me, but I don't think it would resonate similarly to everybody. So that's why I'm giving it the 8. If it were just my own personal rating for the story, and I was just rating it for myself to remind myself of how much I enjoyed it, I would give it a 10 out of 10. But being a little more subjective, I think it was a good, solid story. And leaves a lot of room for growth and development of the characters. But again, not particularly groundbreaking. And I don't think any manga lover could pick it up and be like, perfect.
Right.
Or any
Um,
comic book lover for that matter.
I'm
Especially
on
if
the
you read comics. If you're here for how much we read comics and go into this, there aren't a lot of comics that do this. So, yeah.
I'm on the same page. I was gonna rate it an 8. I thoroughly enjoyed the story, but I do recognize that it's a niche for a reader.
Mhm.
Whether it's somebody who just enjoys art or somebody who is in art is gonna resonate and probably enjoy the story a lot more than just a random manga cart or bookshelf grab. I would heavily recommend it to pretty much any of my friends, but most of my friends are also artists. Like most of my close friends are who I could convince to pick up anything to read are artists, and I would recommend this to them.
That's actually funny because I think anybody that I would consider a close friend of mine is also an artist.
Yeah,
Okay.
um,
We have our friend types.
we do. um, so I would recommend it to any of them, and yeah, the only reason that I'm not giving it a higher score is because I want to recognize that it is a niche. It does it
Wait,
well,
what did you give it?
an 8.
Okay.
Um, It does it well. I don't think that a comic book to be a 10 to be a 9 needs to be groundbreaking, but I do think it should resonate with
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be groundbreaking either. It was
if
more
it's
of
not gonna
a
be groundbreaking, then it needs to resonate with a larger audience.
right. And if it's not resonating with a large audience, then it needs to be groundbreaking. It needs to do one of those
Exactly.
two things.
Which is the
Because
only reason that I'm trying to be a little bit more restrained in my scoring for the
right.
story.
And that's exactly my point as well. It's like if this were like a niche storyline as it was, but it was like, oh my god, groundbreaking and just out of this world, then I would have still given it a higher score, even though it was for
Art.
a small group of people that would enjoy it.
Yeah.
But because of the ground that it broke, it's still worth it for anybody to read. Whereas if it had then just been for a wider, essentially, if it had been for a wider audience, it also could have scored higher for me. We're on the same page.
We
Just
are.
we're just explaining it
Um,
differently, I think.
and then for art, I am also gonna give it an 8.
Okay.
Um, which I haven't written down as an 8, and maybe I'll go 9. I guess I'll change it to 9. It's not gonna change my overall score. So I'll give the art a 9 just because it does, I think, beautifully depict an artist's world in a really beautiful medium. And all of the art, which I did not notice that they credited the original student artists that they have in there, which also makes me feel better about raising my original 8 to a 9 score.
I'm going to
Um,
tell you that right there is going to be the reason why I score it the same at a 9, is
yeah,
because not only was the artist, the author, the creator's art awesome, but they acknowledge that if they want to depict all of these different ways that people do art, they need to incorporate other people's art,
mm.
kind of thing.
And I also love that something that I find well, no, never mind. Never mind. That was not a valid point in any comic that I had read, so never mind. But yeah, I agree 100%. And then overall is me first because it's my pick,
Yep.
and I give it trying to be more objective, I give it an 8 overall.
Hmm.
I would personally give it a 9 overall for, like, personal
For you.
preferences.
Uh
This would probably be one that I would want to collect just for, like, feel-good
huh.
reads, not necessarily for the art, and not one that I'm like, "Oh my god, I gotta have it paperback version."
Hmm.
Paperback version is like Witch Hat or, the classics where you're like, "Oh my god, I read them as a child, I gotta have them all." Um, but this one is definitely one that I would follow reading. Uh, and digital copies are very handy and just very convenient.
Yeah. Agreed.
So, and it's a great filler.
Yeah. A cleanser, palate cleanser, like you were
Palette
saying.
cleanser. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm also giving it an 8 for similar reasons. Um,
We're very agreeable this
with this one, I think it's like we have the same views on art. Our mediums are different, but this hit us both in a similar way.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, we're siblings, we grew up the same way
that's,
in a household that very much outpushed the art.
I would even say the household pushed art. It was a very um, accepting environment, whatever you
Yeah,
wanted to do.
I guess it was yeah, I mean, when I say push the art, when mom and dad realized that art was something you were into, they very much wanted to make sure that it was clear that they
Supported us.
supported you, and so
Yeah.
sometimes, in my opinion, it felt like they were pushing
That's
art.
fair. For me, I kind of stumbled upon it, and then they were very accepting of it. And then you and Sarah just got to bask in the glow of it, you know, bask in
Right.
the aftermath glow of all that was happening because of it. Um, but yeah, I think Anna. I think honestly, you know what this means? I think we tied this month
I'm okay with that because you know what? I feel like I lose most of the time, so
because what Wolverine? I scored overall a 9. You did 7, so that's 16. Green Lantern Earth 1, 8 and 8, so 16. Pearl 8 and 8, 16.
oh my god.
And Blue Period 8 and 8, 16. Literally all of our overall scores were 16 out of 6.
Amounted to
We're
16.
16, yeah. 16 out of a possible 20.
Interesting.
This was a good month for us. This
Interesting.
was a good month for us.
It was, and I feel like, we tried really hard this month also to be as objective as possible with
Yes.
comics that necessarily did not resonate with one
Yeah.
of us or both of us.
I honestly think we've been getting. I think the last couple of months we've been really good about that. Just because, like, looking at the score for like Hawkman, I'm looking at it and it's like I loved it and I want to read as much like so much more Hawkman now, but I still only gave it overall a 7.
Wow.
So so I feel
I
like
feel like
we're
I probably scored it higher than
you
you
did
did.
you did
Oh,
you scored
okay.
it an 8. Um, so I feel like we're getting a little better at being objective, while still kind of saying why these hit home
Are
with
we
us.
being too much like Paula and not enough like Simon?
I mean, I could definitely get Simon-esque. If we need to do that, I could tear this. I could tear every book apart. Um,
Well, let us know in the comments.
yeah. Um, have you picked your next one?
I haven't picked the volume specific. I was looking into it the other day and I have a couple of choices, but I have not picked volume specific. So we will post that as an announcement on Monday.
I know what my so I'm kind of cheating with my DC pick.
I already know what your DC pick is if you're doing what you told me you were going to do last time.
What did I tell
Witching
you I was going to do?
witching hour.
Oh, I did want to do that.
And I figured since you wanted to keep it spooky, you were still gonna
Ooh.
go for it.
See,
My bad.
I was debating on actually. So my pick was going to be was going to actually not. It was going to be published by Vertigo, which is a DC subsidiary. So it
Uh-huh.
wasn't like really DC, but it's really DC. So now I'm kind of stuck between if I want to do American Vampire or if I want to do. Oh man, now I got to really think about it. Thanks, Anna.
You're welcome, man. Ah.
Um,
Hank is like staring me down because
so
he's
so
like,
yeah,
"Hmm?"
now that I don't know what I want to do, you guys will have to stay tuned to the post about yeah.
On Monday.
Hmm?
It'll be a fun little announcement video.
Yeah.
Hello, Hank.
Uh, my main reason for wanting to do American Vampire is Scott Snyder was the writer, and um, he did New 52 Batman, and that's probably some of my favorite Batman that I've ever read.
I know that. You know how I know that?
Because you got me a signed comic book.
I did.
Yeah. So, alrighty, guys. Anna, where can people find you on the internet?
I was gonna say it to you first. Okay, I am on the Instagram. I have two accounts, a personal account, which is mostly the dog that is crying in the background, and that is a Riddick, or no, that is Anna underscore Riddick, and my art account, which is a Riddick underscore designs.
Rock on.
Ah, you big baby.
And you can always find me on everything. It's Benpai, ITSBENPAI on Instagram, on the Purple live streaming website. Those are the and Twitter. And then you can also find my art account on Instagram, Benpai Photo. And then, of course, you can find everything Shalom-Aste Comics related on Instagram at Shalom-Aste Comics, on TikTok. We actually are pretty consistent about putting some content on TikTok. This last week, we did really bad with our man crush and woman crush days, but we'll
We
get
had
back to that.
personal stuff going on.
We had
We're human.
yeah, we had a lot of personal stuff going on this week. Um, so, yeah. Yeah, trying to hire a nanny, not fun. But we found one.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. I was still looking for one even after I asked you, so it's not even really a big deal. So yeah. So yeah, there's
Until next
content on
time.
TikTok, and also be sure to check out our YouTube channel if you're listening to this on a podcast streaming service, because I don't know if you can see it behind me, but I destroyed a bunch of comic books
Oh my
and
god.
glued them onto the wall. And made a bunch of people on Reddit very angry, and did a fun video of reading Reddit comments and addressing some of Reddit's concerns. You know, there was something that was really cool that someone recommended on Reddit, and I'm just going to bring it up right here real quick. Since Second and Charles sells those boxes of 50 comics,
Mhm.
I'm really debating on getting another box of those and giving comics as trick or treat things.
That's awesome.
I mean, I've got a bunch of extra comics already. I love. Someone recommended that. It's like, why would you tear them up when you could, if you were just going to get rid of them, just give them to trick or treaters? Like, I really like that idea. I'm still going to tear up these comics. Well, I've already torn up the comics, but yeah, I thought that
I
was
mean,
really
you
cool.
found some beautiful gems that you did not tear up.
I did not tear up some of those things. There's one comic that's a Magneto issue 1, and it was the limited foil cover of it, and it's in like really nice condition. So I'm gonna send it in to get graded. But it sold on eBay earlier this year, like in March, for $110. I'm like, I'm not ripping that one up.
Uh,
Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Remember to keep your pull list full, and until next time, Shalom-Aste.
Dang.